Good afternoon or good morning from everyone, from me to everyone. I hope everyone is keeping safe and well and adjusting to the new normal. This is the Biamp paging overview webinar that we're giving today. We're going to help you understand today. So a little bit of an overview for you to start with, or an introduction, I should say. My name's Hodgkinson. I'm an application engineer at Biamp. I'm based in the UK. And I joined a part in 2009. I came across as part of that acquisition into Biamp. Before that, I also worked with Biamp for 9 years when we introduced the audio DSP system and so on. So yeah. So an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. So firstly, what is paging? What is it that we're actually talking about and trying to achieve? Then we're going to look into some paging user interfaces that we know and a lot of us use day to day, of course. And then the Biamp paging solutions, the products that we have that are applicable, and then some application examples for using Biamp products. So hopefully you all understand that this is quite a high level overview of what we have. We're not going into great detail about any individual product, but nevertheless, I hope this will be useful for you. So the basics, what is paging? What is it we're talking about here? So paging is basically the process of delivering a live voice or the playback of a pre-recorded message to an audience to alert them of an event. So this could be, for example, the London train is leaving platform 4. This would be at a train station, obviously. We have a special offer for you on red wine today, and that could be in any retail outlet. Mr. Scaff, your visitor is in reception, so this would be in the Biamp head office, for example. And emergency, please leave the fire exits. This is pretty much anywhere where you're going to have some sort of announcement or paging system. So the other things to bear in mind that there are many types of different paging systems available. So an all-call system, which is where the voice that you are projecting into a microphone is going to be broadcast into all of the zones in a system at the same time. So that's an all-call system. You can, however, choose which zones of the system you want the voice to be broadcast into. So this could be a single zone, or it could be selected multiple zones that will receive the announcement. And then of course you have zone groups. So this is logically associated zones within a system, which are defined as one zone group. So when you page to that group, it always pages the set number of zones at the same time. So with paging, it's very often combined with background music, BGM, as we're going to call it through here today. Very popular to have background music and a paging system combined nowadays. You often find what's called preamble, or a chime is used at the beginning of the paging message to get people's attention. So it's normally in the form of a ding dong or multiple tones to get the attention of people in the space. Paging systems can have adjustable priority for multiple mics. So obviously an emergency mic will have a higher priority than general announcement mics in a installation. You often also find interfaces to automatic announcement systems in airports and railways. So therefore the system in the airport, which deals with the comings and goings of the airport display system, that automatically interfaces to the audio system so that they automatically get translated into voice announcements over the system. And very often there's facilities for message playback, recording and scheduling. So you can have a message which plays back at the same time every day, or at the push of a button, for example. And paging is often part of a life safety system. So that's very useful to give people dedicated information about how to get out of a dangerous situation in a building, for example. Now, paging can use very different methods of transmitting or transferring the audio signal from one place to another. So it could be standard analog audio, so mic level signals, line level signals, and then going to 100-volt amplifiers, for example, to the speakers. You can, of course, use VoIP, which we use quite a lot in our Tessera system. And then we also have networked audio, so using AVB in our case, or Dante, or on the older systems, CobraNet, to transmit audio across a standard network infrastructure between different areas of the project. And in general, paging systems can be designed such that they're centralized, which means that all of the equipment is in one rack, and then you have normally 100 volt or 70 volt speaker line signals going off to the loudspeakers in the zones. Or they can, of course, be decentralized, where all of the different components of the paging system are laid out across different areas within the building. So, for example, you would have amplifiers connected via digital audio, which are actually in the same space or very close to the loudspeakers, meaning that you can have short loudspeaker cable runs. But we do talk about this a little bit later. So, paging user interfaces that we have in the market. So firstly, they need to be robust. So unlike this one, which I'm showing you on the screen, this is a real life paging station, which I saw a couple of months ago. Amazingly, I saw it yesterday again, and it's still working. So it's one day I'm going to go in there with a new piece of Cat5 just to help them out, because it will fail eventually. So they need to be robust. They need to be simple to use. It's child's play. So this is one of our MicPat 4s, for example, being used by a very young user here. And they need to be reliable. So they need to be able to continue working all the time, especially when they're needed in emergency systems, for example. So there are many types of paging user interfaces. All of them generally have a microphone. So that's something you talk into, invariably on a gooseneck or on a fist microphone like this one. They normally always have some controls. So for example, on the fist mic, there's a button to make it activate. On this microphone, there's a button that you push to activate the microphone. You can also have individual zone select buttons and zone group select buttons, for example. And invariably, they have a paging on button of some sort, and that makes the microphone live to the zones themselves that you've already selected. Some also have controls for message playback. So this one, for example, I'm not quite sure what brand this is, but it has message selection, and you can play back the message into the zones and so on. Some also have control of external equipment. So this is one of the DMic 12 paging mics, which we'll talk about a bit later. This is obviously used for paging messages to different zones. You have different zone selection and a call button on it. But you also have buttons which you can program to, for example, open an electric door in an office or open a car park barrier to play music, adjust the level, and also for a busy lamp in an office space, for example. Excuse me. So going into the solutions that Biamp currently offer, you can see that we have a lot of products in the range, ranging from quite low cost with relatively few features, right up to the more expensive products, but with incredible amount of features and flexibility in the system. So we'll go through all of these one by one. So this is the first one, the MicPat D. This is a single button paging mic, obviously used for a single zone or all call in a multi-zone system or a zone group system. So one button, momentary or latching operation. And this uses logic, so a contact closure and an audio connection between the MicPat and the device, which is actually doing the audio transmission. So this can be used with various different products in our range, the MA series, the MA247, Concept 1 and 1T, Pre-Zone 2, the Tessera Forte and the Tessera Servo IO. Next step up logically is the MicPat 2, 2 buttons, capable of 2 zones or 2 zone groups, for example. Momentary operation, again, simple logic and audio connection. Can be used with MA247, Concept 1 or T, and Pre-Zone 2. MicPat 4, 4 buttons, 4 zones or zone groups or all call. Momentary operation, logic and audio connection. Can be used with Zone 4 particularly, but also with Tessera Forte and Servo IO. MicPat 6 is a dedicated paging mic for our MA247, 6 buttons, 6 zones or zone groups and all call, logic and audio connection, but it can also be used with Tessera Forte and Servo IO using logic connections to that device. DMic 1 is a single zone or single button paging mic to be used with our audio control system. Its big brother, the DMic 12, has 12 buttons plus a paging on button plus all call button. So this allows you to page to 12 zones or 12 zone groups or an all call situation. Plus the buttons can be used for macro and messaging playback, and it has momentary or latching operation. And this one uses serial control using Cat5 connection as transport, plus the audio connection all over one cable. So that's dedicated for use with audio control. Then we have DMIC 12S, which is a 12-button expander for DMIC 12. So with that in place, it allows you up to 24-zone paging system by using a DMIC 12, a DMIC 12S, and 3 audio control devices. Plus, it allows you for macro message playback and does this via direct connection to the DMIC 12. So as I say there, you need audio control and a DMIC 12 for this to be used. Moving on to some of the more advanced products. So very newly introduced the MPX range. So this has 4 buttons and paging on. So this can be used to recall 4 page codes. Can be wall or table mounted, has built-in DSP and message and preambles built into it. And it uses Ethernet for the communication, powered via PoE+, and it uses AVB or Dante for the networked audio. So this can be used with the new QTX and the Tessera range of products. So this should be coming out in Q2, this product. Similarly, the MPXG 1040, 4 buttons and paging on, 4 page codes, table mounted, built-in DSP, and again, QTX and Tessera. The wall mount version of the same with 10 buttons and up to 999 page codes, again, QTX and Tessera. And then the desk mount version with 10 buttons plus the paging on button, 999 page codes. So a page code is effectively a zone or a zone group, or it could be a live playback from the microphone, or it could be the transmission of a recorded message, for example. Again, built-in DSP and message and preambles, Ethernet transmission, PoE+ powered, and AVB or Dante out of the box. So you can use it with either in a Tessera system. Then moving on to the Vocia capable paging stations. So this is WS4, which is a wall mount paging mic with a fist microphone, 4 page codes capability with the 4 buttons built in, handheld microphone, and again, built-in DSP message and preambles. Plus this has a store and forward functionality, which means that the paging mic is not live, but you record the message, and then once you finish recording the message, you can choose that it be transmitted to the applicable zones. Again, Ethernet communication powered by PoE and uses CobraNet for its audio transmission. This can be used with Vocia. We also have a version of this called EWS4, which comes with EN54 certification so that the whole system can be compliant with European life safety evacuation protocols. WS10, same thing, but with 10 buttons, so 999 page codes, again with Vocia, and again also available, should be EWS10 of course, with the EN54 certification. Then the desk mount versions, DS4, 4 buttons plus the paging on button to give you 4 paging codes. Again, Ethernet, PoE, and CobraNet to get this working, and used with Vocia. And then the big brother, the DS10, the desk mount version with 10 buttons plus the paging on to give you 999 page codes. Desk mounted with store and forward functionality, again, Ethernet, PoE, and CobraNet capable. And this is dedicated to use with Vocia. So here you see a summary of all of the different products. So the smaller mic pad, paging mics, which can interface with the lower end, more cost-effective DSPs and mixing amplifiers and preamplifiers, all the way up through to Tessera and QTX with the new MPX paging stations, and then the Vocia system, the fully fledged system, which can be programmed to do pretty much everything. And here, just for reference, I've made a table so that you can see where each of these paging mics can be used currently. But we move on to applications. Just checking questions, no questions yet. So on the application side, these are just a few of the samples because pretty much anything is possible with the products. So we're going to go from a 2-zone system with background music through a 16-zone, 24-zone, and right up to a 48-zone, just to help you see how we can accommodate very many different types of applications with these products. So real simple solution using centralized processing. So everything on the left side of this graphic is going to be in the main rack, and then you have loudspeaker cables going off to the two zones to the loudspeakers. So we simply have a pre-zone 2 preamplifier, which accepts the mic pad 2, so that's the audio signal from the mic pad 2, plus the two logic connections. And then it also has either a single or multiple music sources. And then using the front panel of the mic of the pre-zone 2, you can select which zones the music will be playing in and which music source will be playing. Plus you can adjust the level in each zone, and that's fed via one of our simple 100-volt amplifiers, so 4 channels of 240 watts. In this case, we're using it in bridge mode. And then, of course, when you come to use the paging mic, you can choose either zone 1 or zone 2 or both. And then when you activate the paging, the music is muted and replaced by the sound from the paging mic, obviously with a chime initially if you want that to be there as well. With this application, with pre-zone 2, you can also note that you can add wall panel controls to allow you to adjust the music level and the music source if necessary. Plus, there is a web app available for pre-zone 2 so that you can control it from a smartphone or a tablet device, of course. Also note, in this case, I've used some of our pendant loudspeakers, but you could equally use any of our loudspeakers that are 100-volt capable or 70-volt in this case. I should also note at this point that all of the systems that we show here as examples, they can also be interfaced to a fire alarm system, so that if the fire alarm is active, then our audio system will become muted so that you can hear the fire alarm system happening at the same time. So moving on to a slightly more complex 4-zone with background music system. So this is the centralized version of this. So at the heart of this, we have a Tessera Forte in this case. It could easily be a Tessera Server IO, of course. So that is accepting the audio signal, an analog audio signal, plus 4 logic connections from the mic pad 4, so directly into the back of the Tessera Forte. Plus it has music sources, an individual one I've shown here, but it could be multiple. And then you have the outputs of the Forte going directly to an amplifier off to 4 zones, which in this case have different loudspeakers built into them. So this is the next level solution using Tessera and mic pad 4. What we've also done is we've made a design guide which you can find in the Cornerstone Design Library in the building infrastructure section. So that has a design guide, which also has a Tessera custom block available there as well. So you can drop that into your Tessera software, and it does all of the heavy lifting of making the chime generator, the paging routing, and the logic interface there as well. We also have a decentralized version of this, so very, very similar front end, but in this case, you only have the Tessera in the rack with maybe the network switch, and then you have a network cable going off to one of the amplifiers, a Tessera AVB amplifier, to power the 4 speakers in the 4 zones. That's just an example, of course, but we could obviously scale that up if necessary. Then we're going to go on to a slightly larger system. This one is aimed at education, but it could equally be used in many other different applications. So this uses our audio control 12.8 DSP processor. So it's a very simple processor. It's not open architecture like Tessera, but it has a real great functionality when it comes to paging and messaging, for example. So in this case, we just have one Cat5 cable, not using Ethernet, which goes between the DMIC 12 in this case and the audio control 12.8. That then produces 8 different zones of line level audio, one for each of the output zones. And that's just simply fed via amplifiers and then using 70 or 100 volt speaker lines off to the different speakers in each zone. So you could, of course, use different speakers in these zones. But what this means is that you then get individual zone paging into the 8 zones, or you can have zone groups, of course, or you can do an all call. Bear in mind that in this design, you could also have multiple paging mics. So you could have many different paging mics in different locations in the building, and you can set up different priorities between them. Also, bear in mind that this is just showing an 8-zone system, but just by the addition of another audio control, you can make it into a 16-zone system, or another audio control, you can make it into a 24-zone system. So then, of course, you'd need more buttons on your DMic 12 just by adding a DMic 12S. So hopefully that's useful. Bear in mind also that this audio control has message playback or message recording and playback availability, plus an event scheduler. So this is really useful for places where you need timed events, like a school where you need to have a bell or a sound playing for the change of class or lunch break, or a factory where they need to respect the work times and they have an announcement over the audio system. So moving on to some of our really exciting new products. This is really as simple as it gets in terms of a 4-zone system with background music and masking, sound masking. Obviously, it could be much larger. You just need to add more of the processors. So in this case, I'm sorry I didn't label it, but these are the 4 QTX processors that we have in this system. So 4 of these devices, each one dealing with 1 zone with the emitters for sound masking, but also they're being used for background music in this case. So you'll notice that all of these are connected directly back to the PoE switch, which powers them. And then we also have the NPX paging station connected to the same PoE switch. So this is real decentralization at its best, because these QTX processors can be simply added into the plenum space or the ceiling void of your installation, driving the speakers directly. And if required, you can have a music source which can be actually connected to any one of these QTX processors and then shared through the whole, all of the required. So the MPX in this case can individually or selectively or call all of these different paging, all these groups, or these zone outputs at the same time if necessary. You can also use the MPX to trigger off a message, for example. So you can record a message and then play it back, or you can have a pre-recorded message that you want to play back. Again, with scheduling if necessary. So this is really quite a large system. I've used it as a shopping mall, but again, the application could be very different. So again, I've gone with decentralization. I've got a Tessera server IO with a music source and maybe the PoE switch in a central rack. And then from there, I have a Cat5 infrastructure going off to the MPX paging mic, and it could be multiple paging mics, of course. And then I've gone off using AVB connections to the AMP450Ts, which are driven by AVB in this case. And each of them has 4 amplifiers built in, which can drive the speakers for the different zones. So there you have a very simple structure for a very complex 24-zone paging system here. And also bear in mind, Tessera has a built-in event scheduler, which combined with the message playback is really useful for lots of different applications. And then lastly, this actually refers to a real live project. So this is a project using Tessera for an airport in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. But note, this is only the first of 4 phases, which will be built on the same equipment. So just to be clear here, the first phase has actually 14 paging mics. I've only shown 2 just for clarity, but there are 14 paging mics. And they are all connected directly to the building network infrastructure. Then I also have 15, yes, 15 of these amplifiers, VA8600, which have an amplifier and DSP. So that's where all of the heavy lifting in terms of processing is done, plus the amplification to the 114 zones of loudspeakers in this case. Then separately, we have 13 ANC processors plus 26 ANC microphones to give ambient noise compensation for these different zones of loudspeakers. Then we have fault monitoring, which is handled by 6 GPIO interfaces. So that's logic connections to and from the system to outside devices. And then an MS1E, which is a message storage device. So that is actually used for holding any of the messages, either temporarily or to be uploaded from the voice announcement, or beg your pardon, the automatic announcement system. So in this case, it's a manufacturer called AviaVox, which uses an FTP flow of messages to the MS1E, and then the messages are played back after the upload. So hopefully that's useful for you to see that this is a real live application here. But as I said, these are examples. Pretty much anything is possible with these products. Obviously, if you need to get in touch with us, you can do. But before I talk about the contact afterwards, there's a couple more webinars to make you aware of. So there's the new IV6 Venue Polar plugin for Ease Focus, which is being presented by Dave Howden next Tuesday, 8 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time, 4 o'clock UK, 5 p.m. Europe. So that's not one to miss. And then COVID-19 by Nathan in the new normal workplace and sound masking. So that's next Thursday, February 18th. At all times, you can see our training courses that are available, the webinars at biamp.com/training/webinars, and you can see what's upcoming, plus also links to recordings of previous webinars. Okay, so that's the end of the webinar today. Just to remind you, if you need any support from us, if you need to speak to me, my name is Ian Hodgkinson, ian.hodgkinson@biamp.com, or any general questions, support@biamp.com. I'd like to very much thank you for attending today. I hope it was useful. Surely we'll get some more details to you as soon as we have them on the new products. Thank you for attending.